Well, good evening. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Paul Davies. Today marks the 105th anniversary of the capture of the village of Pozières by Australian troops of the 1st Division. In the early hours of the 23rd of July 1916, troops of the Australian 1st Division launched an attack which would result in the capture of the fortified village of Pozières on the Somme. Under cover of carefully fired artillery barrage, Australian infantry entered the village and after hours of bitter fighting were able to eject the Germans, who had held the village since the earliest months of the war. One man described how, the instant our guns lifted the Germans' batteries and machine guns, which had been waiting open-fired on us, and a torrent of high explosive shrapnel and bullets were let loose. Men fell in all directions, but nothing could stop the boys now. Their blood was up. Into the trench they dashed and bayoneted and shot like fury. The capture of Pozières was the beginning of a 6-week campaign that saw 3 Australian divisions rotate in and out of the line, conducting attack after attack in an attempt to advance along Pozières Ridge. They would not see the same success as they had on the first day. Nevertheless, they slowly advanced towards the fortified stronghold of Mouquet Farm under some of the heaviest artillery fire of the war. By the time the Australians were relieved from the battlefield on the 3rd of September 1916, they had advanced a little over a mile from Pozières at a cost of 24,000 casualties, 6,731 of which were dead. A memorial at the windmill site on Pozières Ridge reminds us that Australian troops fell more thickly on this ridge than on any other battlefield of the war. Tonight we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. And during this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. Australia's Federation Guard is a tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events, and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catapult party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier.
Party, three birds! Catapult Party, rest on!
If you're able, I invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Catapult Party, attention! Catapult Party, present arms!
Australians, all let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is good by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Catapult Party, shoulder, arms! Catapult Party, order, arms!
If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Reginald Alfred Johnson Palmer. Reginald Palmer, known as Reg, was born in 1890 to George and Martha Palmer of Alberton in Adelaide, South Australia. He was brought up in Port Adelaide, where he was a member of the Sunday school of the local Congregational Church. Reg was educated at the Alberton Public School. After completing his education, Palmer moved to Western Australia and took up work as a farm labourer. When he was in his late teens, his father left the family and seems to have cut off contact with them. Reg became an important source of financial support for his mother, sending home money from Western Australia. After war broke out in August 1914, Palmer attempted to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force, but was turned down due to problems with his eyesight. As an increasing number of men were needed at the front, however, enlistment standards slackened, and Palmer was accepted for service in September 1915. Private Reg Palmer underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas aboard RMS Mongolia on the 16th of November 1915. He was first sent to Egypt, where he continued training in the desert. Just after Christmas, the Anzac force evacuating from Gallipoli began to arrive back in Egypt in large numbers, and the AIF underwent an extended period of training and reorganisation. For at least part of this time, Palmer was in hospital suffering from the mumps. In April 1916, the 11th Battalion was sent to France to fight on the Western Front. On the 23rd of July, the 11th Battalion took part in its first major operation in the Battle of the Somme, where it helped to capture the French village of Pozières. Although the village was successfully captured, the 11th Battalion sector was in a precarious position for 2 or 3 days, with only a thinly held line holding the front together, while large numbers of men moved into the wrong positions in heavy artillery fire or became casualties. When the battalion was withdrawn, it discovered that Private Reg Palmer was missing. It took some time to determine that he had been killed in action on or around the 25th of July 1916. One of his mates, Private R.J. Bransby, later gave evidence that he had heard that Palmer had been wounded badly in the head, chest and other places during the battle, and that he had died in the ambulance on the way from the dressing station to the casualty clearing station just behind the Pozières battlefield. Later, Private Palmer's few belongings were sent home to his mother. They included his badly damaged spectacles. Private Reginald Palmer was buried not far from where he died, and today he lies in the Pozières British Cemetery at Ovillers-la-Boisselle, under the simple epitaph, "The utmost for the highest." He was 27 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Reginald Alfred Johnson Palmer, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
Catapult party, shoulders, arms.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Catapult party, present, arms.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.